points that He turns us around and conforms us to His will and His work and His world. Paul would later discover that it was at his very point of weakness that he was most strong, for it was there that he learned genuinely to depend and trust in God. It's when we're strong, when we're successful, that we get so full of ourselves that we are furthest from God. And it's when Peter is just on absolutely the wrong side of this conversation with Jesus, that Jesus is able to bring him into the way. Bless his heart, Peter just doesn't get it. He's got the right words, but he just can't figure out what to do. Who is this Jesus? In this story, we realize that Jesus is the one that even Satan follows. Wow. And this is not a new finding in the gospel. We have heard even strangers say, who is this that even the demons obey when He speaks? When you are lost, when you are in the midst of frustrating times, Jesus says, get behind me. Follow me. It's an amazing word of consolation and strength. It's not that bad things won't happen to us. It's that in the midst of even these times, we have none other than the Lord of all creation to follow. I will confess that until this week, I think I totally misunderstood the rest of this story. Jesus goes on, after He has brought Satan in the form of Peter into conformity with His will and His teaching. He goes on to say, if you would be my follower, you must take up your cross and follow me. How many of you have viewed that cross as the burdens that we have to bear? For all of my life until this week, I guarantee you 100% of the time, that's what I thought this text said. And the common parlance, how do we describe it? Yeah, David, you have your own cross to bear. And it's an expression of sympathy, and gosh, don't I feel sorry for you. Because you've got your own cross to bear. How sorry a lot that is. Each of us. And this is what the world tells us. And just like the beginning of the story, the world's got it all wrong. The cross of Jesus Christ is the greatest gift that God has ever given to humanity, is it not? It is in the journey to the cross that Jesus of Nazareth has delivered forgiveness of sin and salvation. Basic Christianity 101, right? So how is it that the greatest gift of all time we can view as a burden? Take up your cross. Take up the gifts that God has given with you. Follow Him and share those gifts with the world. I had always viewed this as a hard lesson in the Bible. It's the easiest lesson in the entire New Testament. Take up your gifts and share them with the church, share them with your family, share them with your friends, share them with the world. We've all heard the story of the incurably optimistic little boy. He had horribly abusive parents, but regardless of whatever circumstance he found himself in, he was always happy. And one morning, it was his 10th birthday, his dad got him up before sunrise and took him to a neighbor's farm and put him to work 6 o'clock in the morning, shoveling out the stable. The owner of the farm came by to check on the little boy's progress after a while, and he was just shoveling away, whistling, smiling, and the man said, "Son, what is wrong with you that in the midst of this heap of manure and this work that you're doing, you're whistling and smiling?" He said, "Sir, any place that there's this much manure, there's got to be a pony." You know, the world is full of hardship and struggle and need. And we have, particularly in the Reformed tradition, we have focused on the drudgery of Christianity way too much. Nobody did that better than C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was just a classic Calvinist sourpuss until late in his life. For the first time, he found love. And the book that he wrote, reflecting on the discovery of love in his life, was entitled Surprised by Joy. How can a guy that grew up in the church be surprised by joy? And yet I think we are. Because we've got that old Protestant work ethic and guilt going on. That's why we come to church, to get rid of our guilt. We're just, sorry little bugs. That's what we've been told. Good German theology, isn't it? And then we're surprised by joy. Where there is this much work to be done, there is even more fellowship to be had. There is more joy, more love. It's an absolutely amazing thing. And what you see in your neighbor, rather than all the crummy things about them, which is what we seem to be able to focus on, we see, as James points out to us, the very image of God. So David the other day was asked to introduce two candidates for mayor at the Billings Fair. Each was going to make a statement about their vision for our community. And David was eloquent in his introduction of the first speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce someone whose wisdom and thoughtfulness is exceeded only by their dedication to this community. Someone whom I know personally to have the heart of a servant. Oh yeah, which one of you was supposed to speak first? What would the world be like if, when we looked at these people on opposite sides of the political spectrum or the religious spectrum or whatever issue it was, instead of our enemy, we saw the very image of God. You saw your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, your child. James and Charlene have been together for 58 years, and so many different things all at the same time, and we are all like that. Their story is our story. And in this moment where we say Jesus is the Christ, the anointed one of God, every sin and shortcoming we've ever had, along with Satan himself, is put behind Jesus and follows Him. We are conformed to His way. Herman, I hate that Herman and Mary aren't here this morning. Herman would enjoy this. Herman was complaining about Mary to me the other day. Said, her memory's just awful. And I said, oh, bless her heart, is she starting to forget things? And he said, no! She remembers everything! A friend of mine, years ago, he was still working as chairman of the board of a bank in the Texas Panhandle. He was 84 years old. He was at that stage of life. He would chuckle and say to me, well, my forgetter is working pretty good today. Well, God's forgetter is working pretty good today. Every sin, every mistake. James has said a mouthful with those words. For all of us make many mistakes. No exceptions. We're not perfect. But God's forgetter, we're working pretty good. And He is able to take that which is even the most imperfect within us and conform it to His will and His way. And free you to pick up your cross, the gift that He has given you very specially to share with the world. And His yoke is easy. His burden is light. Get behind Him. take up your own cross